Most people will never be successful, and it's got nothing to do with who they are or where they're born. It's just that they're unaware of the things that they themselves are doing that keeps them from success. And today, that's exactly what we're talking about. Welcome to ALUX. First up, they look at global success instead of personal success. Now, this might shock you, but you don't need billions of dollars to be successful. What most people consider successful is just a very, very small portion of the population. And you need all the planets in the universe to align in your favor in order to get there. We promise you, okay, if all the billionaires in the world suddenly lose all of their money tomorrow, it's unlikely they'll manage to make it all back. But this doesn't stop people from only associating success with that particular image. And then they get discouraged. They see themselves unfit and unlikely to ever be able to achieve that, so why bother? What they don't see is what success looks like for them. For every single person in the world, there's a certain cap where getting more doesn't really have that much impact. And that cap is way lower than what most people think it is. Let's just ask you this. How much money do you think you need to earn in a given year to be considered a part of that glorious 1%? It's not hundreds of millions of dollars, it's not even tens of millions, hell, it's not even $1 million. It's around $800,000, or that was back in 2021, so let's say it's a little bit higher now. The point still remains. You need way less than you think to be considered successful from a monetary standpoint. Yet people only look at the very peak of that mountain and get intimidated instead of ever bothering to reach base camp. They don't understand that success happens overnight. And no, that's not a typo or a mistake. Success really does happen overnight when you look at the big picture. To prove it, pick any company you want and check out the all-time stock. Let's take Nvidia, for example, since they're pretty hot right now. The moment you become successful seems like a blip in comparison to the time they've been at it. It's the same for every single company. You can look it up yourself. The point is, success is not linear. It's like going to the gym where you see progress every couple of months. In the grand scheme of things, success kinda does happen overnight. You know how an idea is worth $1 million only after it's made $1 million? Well, success is exactly like that, and people don't tend to understand this, but they also don't understand how progress works. They expect to see results fairly quickly, and then they don't allow themselves to play the game long enough. If you're doing the right things, well, it's only a matter of time as long as you manage to survive the whole 9 yards. They're afraid to lose what they already have. To be successful at anything, you need to pay for it. You pay for it with the time it takes to educate yourself. You pay with the opportunities you miss out on when you're focused on this. And you pay for the tools you might need to get there. It's all a trade-off. And people are afraid to sacrifice the current resources they have for a potential higher return. For them, it was already hard to get to where they are right now, even if that point is not very far ahead. And the risk seems too high. They're not confident in their ability to land on their feet if something goes south. They have nothing solid to fall back on, so taking the risk for success feels higher than it actually is. And on a similar note, they overestimate how hard it is. This goes hand in hand with the first point. When you've got some kind of grandiose picture of success that's not anchored in reality, you ultimately also overestimate what it takes to get there. Most people say they can't afford to go all in on something that could fail. They've got responsibilities, people to take care of, bills to pay, a mortgage and loans that keep them from taking that leap. But the question is, why go all in? This isn't some kind of Hollywood movie. We're not sure where this go all in mindset came from, but it's the wrong one to have. It's all about consistency, not overcommitment. Small action on a daily basis is what puts you on a successful path. And speaking of paths, they take an unsuccessful path. With some people, you just know they're gonna have a bad time, right? Dead-end jobs, toxic relationship patterns, unhealthy behaviors, it's all going downhill. A major 180 move is required here. It's really hard to pick yourself up when you've let yourself down all the time. Some things are obvious that they're not going to work no matter how hard you hit your head on that wall. You know it, and everybody else knows it. People get too stuck in their ways of being and they just seem to not be able to see the multitude of different paths they could take. It's not a matter of skills or of opportunities, it's just a matter of choice. They've got outdated mentalities. All of us have to deal with the unfortunate situation that the world is changing faster than we know how to adapt to it. Never in history has a decade looked so fundamentally different than the previous one. Imagine telling someone from 2014 that robots will take over painting jobs in the next 10 years, and that the changes are only happening faster and faster. The point is, an old mentality will find it almost impossible to comprehend how the world works today. And if you can't understand how the world works, well, how could you find your place in it? They believe there's a limited amount of success. Success is personal, and the only limit it has is the one you put on yourself. Most people believe that for them to succeed, others have to fail. And since they follow a lot of successful people, that means they have already failed by default. They see every mountain full of people at the top with only room left at the bottom. They feel like there's no more room for them. They can't think of a better idea because all the good ones have already been taken. They can't find a way to make things work better because everything has already been optimized. They can't have their own voice because there are already so many people with millions of followers out there. And these limiting beliefs don't allow them to see the reality. You're not successful because you're better than someone else. No, you're successful because you are who you wanted to be. They're afraid to look stupid. The second you start working toward your own success, everyone around you will try to put you back down so they feel better about themselves. The only people who won't do that might be your parents, but they won't do it because if you're successful, that means they did a great job raising you, right? The point is, people will try to make you look stupid so they can feel smarter by comparison. And it can feel very uncomfortable if you're not emotionally mature enough to understand what's happening and just take the high road here. It's against human nature. We're wired to avoid risk to stay alive. Going off the beaten track in search of a better life goes against our nature because it involves risk and uncertainty. But some people's desires for a better life, well, just outweighs their nature that wants them to be safe. They feel their untapped potential bubbling, waiting to break free. It doesn't allow them to sit still very long. For them, doing what everyone else is doing is that scary, risky path. But most people are not like this. It takes a lot of self-awareness and courage to break free from that human nature. They don't know how to start. Some people simply don't have the tools or the framework. They just don't know what to do. They feel lost and overwhelmed. They know they have the potential, but don't know where exactly to deploy it. We personally believe that everyone has everything required to be successful. It's only a matter of deploying the resources in the right place, and we have created the tool to help you do exactly that. The ALUX app uses large-scale academic studies and experts that we pay on your behalf to give you daily doses of wisdom and insight. It's the only product of its kind on the market, and this week we launched version 2.0 with specialized features to generate your very own unique learning path tailored to your learning experience in the areas that you're struggling with most. Go to alux.com/app right now and get yourself started. There's a 7-day free trial that you can see what it's all about before committing. But we promise, okay, it is well worth the investment. alux.com/app. They don't have enough ambition. Ambition is essentially the desire for you to do something. It starts from within. It's one of the only feelings that you can have for yourself. You can't really be ambitious for someone else when you think about it. And since it starts from within, it requires you to know who you are and most importantly, what you really want out of life. Something a lot of people are pretty bad at. You cannot muster the ambition for something better if you don't know what you actually want. A good reason to do so. Success in any area of life requires consistent action over a prolonged period of time, and you simply won't do that if you don't have a good reason to. For most people, the longest thing they did was going to school every day for years. And the reason you did it was because you were told to do it and you had no say in the matter. Most people are not used to the process of sticking with something long past the moment where it becomes monotonous. They're not willing to put in the work. Hard work alone will not make you successful by default, okay? That doesn't change the fact that it is still required, though. People chase success not because it's easy, but because it is worth it. But some can't see the worth in it. They get too prideful, and that's because it's way easier to complain about their unfair disadvantage than it is to actually do something about it. They lack discipline. Discipline is what you rely on when motivation fades away, because it always will. It's really tiring having to hype yourself up every morning just to get your ass moving. You can't rely on motivation alone because it's just too fleeting. Discipline, on the other hand, is just a set of rules. You make them and you enforce them. You don't even have to think about it, you just do it because you know it's good for you. But most people lack discipline because the world around them robs them of their focus and attention. Their mind is buzzing constantly, which blurred their long-term vision. And speaking of the mind, they've got a poor mindset. Ultimately, it's all about your mindset and how you position yourself in the world. If you look at yourself as this unprepared, uneducated, and undeserving person, well, guess what? That's all you'll be for the rest of your life. If your mind is not prepared for it, then all the efforts are futile. And of course, we've got a bonus for those who always stick with us until the end. And that bonus is that these people are scared of success. Oh yes, trying to be successful means putting yourself out there, right? Making yourself seen and ultimately being vulnerable. And some people are just way too terrified of that. It mostly comes from imposter syndrome and a fear of rejection. So they end up preferring to stay firmly planted on the ground instead of that risk of falling from the top. We hope you learned something valuable here today, Aluxer. We'll see you back here next time. Until then, take care.